We are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Escaping Success podcast, sponsored by Apollo Fuel. Here with your host, A.D. Facarede and
Tom Muffler, thank you for tuning in.
Tom. What are we talking about today?
So I want to talk about success in a sense of when is enough
Yeah.
in different realms. Something that I personally been struggling with, as you know, we talked about last few episodes how like that numbness, that drive, like just to keep going even though I know something's off. Where like I'm slowly losing touch of like emotions, feelings, because it's just I'm at that red line and I'm just like kind of now just pushing it even further. But I'm like, what is that innate desire to, is it like to prove to myself that I could like, you know, reach a breaking point and keep going until there's nothing left, something I've done in the past. Like what is that desire, or as I was alluding to earlier, like you see the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates of the world, people that have amassed, you know, amassed a major fortune, companies, like quote unquote success, but then they get divorced, you know, they lose their marriages, relationships, or their health suffers as a consequence. So what is that? I'm just curious, like, is it ever going to be enough, or do you like make a conscious decision, be like, hey, once I reach this point, then it's enough? But then that's also like a fallacy in my mind, because I've seen people very close where they have like a number, like, hey, once I reach this number, then I'll be happy, or then I'll relax.
Yes.
And then they reach that number and it's like, oh, let's double that number now. So it's like, so I do think it's always good to progress and strive, but it's just, I think maybe it's an American thing of just like, we just think progression, striving, which is like a financial, monetary thing, or like a, you know, publicity thing. But I don't know, what's your viewpoints on that?
That's a good question, man. Well, you know, the first simple answer is that's why we named this podcast Escaping Success.
Yeah.
Because, you know, part of success is escaping it. Because I really do think there is a lot of traps and hamster wheels that one can fall into. I wanted to read something. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know whether I have it here. I thought I had it on my phone. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to find it. Notes. Wow, where did it happen? I'm gonna.
Well, we'll talk while he's looking this up. I'm gonna talk
pause.
about how sad it is that I just found out that college players get paid football
Well,
or
hey,
any sport.
NIL.
NIL.
Name-
I heard about it on news, but I'm so out of touch with like
Name,
football
image,
and everything.
Name, image, and likeness, man.
Yeah,
That's
I
crazy.
just found out. AD just educated me this morning about how much football players are making, or any athlete in the NCAA. I heard about it in the news a couple of years ago, but I didn't know it was actually a legit thing. It's pretty wild. So if you're wondering, I do live under a rock in some areas. I'm not proud of it.
Yep.
But that's the truth.
So what I was looking for is, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. So that's an Aristotle quote. So the reason why I bring up this quote of we are what we repeatedly do, and excellence, therefore, is not an act, is a habit. It's very important for someone when, you know, you're going down the path of excellence to set the right habits in play. So very similar to my weight loss journey. If I'm doing all the wrong things, like for example, in my pursuit of losing weight, I'm not eating enough. Like I'm eating 500 calories a day. I'm exercising 4 times a day, and I'm basically just doing I'm doing a lot of things to lose weight, but not the right things that's habitable to have relationships, longevity, things of that nature. In my pursuit of that, I can lock down and double down and be like, oh, well, my work is getting in the way of this. I can find a part-time job, or even quit my job, live with my parents to just keep up. Like I can alter my life to stay in the stubbornness of that routine because it's been successful. And I can even go as far as like, okay, I'm 330 now, 225 is not a good goal. I want to be 145. I can, through will and through sacrificing every other thing in my life, but just that one goal, get to that 145. But the question begets itself, was it worth it? At 145, is that really a healthy weight for me, right? So I bring that, that particular example because as it relates to being a billionaire or being a successful person, whatever goal you set out, it's going to be ever changing. However, the habits that you do to go there, if you're not setting the right habits, you're setting yourself up to be exactly like those people. So where I'm different is that, like, although I am extremely passionate about my goals and I'm always striving for excellence, part of my daily habits is the things that I actually care about. So for example, now when I work out in the morning. I don't work out in the evenings because I partition evening time for the family. In the evening I might work, but like I still set some time up for my family. Like the evenings I try to make it as clear as possible for my family. Things may come in to bother that, but at the end of the day, like that is my family time, whether I like it or not. Like, you know what I mean? So that's my family time. So right now that's what that looks like. But as I'm going through the process, I'm not being so rigid in that if I find out there's a more effective way to go about that family time, like I find myself like, oh, well, when I'm at home, I realize that I'm still doing work and I'm not being as present. So it's better to do an activity. I will adjust to do that activity. But now the issue that a lot of people face, I feel, is that they're so rigid and so adamant and so fixated on that goal, that vision of their company, their business, themselves, their financial well-being, that nothing is off the table to be sacrificed. So whether it be relationships, whether it be marriages, whether it be health, all those things are on the table to be sacrificed, right? But however, now when you have the outlook of like, I'm not sacrificing anything for this goal, I'd rather get to this goal longer or maybe potentially never get to this goal, but put in my daily deposits habitually and trust the process to get here without sacrificing my health, my family, and my mental well-being. That is now where you go. And I think what assists me with this mindset is that I have a very long-term view. I don't believe that my life is just from when I was born to when I die. I believe that there's another part of existence, which in my case is heaven. And heaven is not something I can work towards or earn through good deeds or things of that nature. It's a gift that's freely given to me by me accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Now, what happens that's very interesting is when I made that decision, accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, there were things added to me that I did not expect, like a heart of compassion, a heart of empathy, a heart of love, a heart that, like, again, a mindset that through that relationship, a mindset that I didn't really know was possible. So in some means at work, there's some things I can gain monetarily from, but I tell the client, like, hey, listen, this is what's going on. They want me to sell you this. I think you should think about it this way. Like, you know, because I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to compromise my honor for excellence, integrity for excellence. And I'm not saying a lot of these billionaires are, because a lot of them are not. But what they are sacrificing are like things that they did not guard and say that this is unsacrificable. Because that exactly. That fixation on that success or on that particular goal, if proper care is not taken and guardrails are not set around certain things, you will easily sacrifice those things in order to get to those without even a thought in mind.
And you're 100% right, because prior to this, probably my life events leading up to starting this podcast and our friendship leading up to this, like, I sacrificed most of, like, I'd say 2018 to 2022, maybe 2023 on work. It was just, and there's no question, work was first, and then it was like my health, my physical health, and then it was like relationships. Like, that was just what it was. And like, the tough part is, like you're saying, I don't know if it's necessary to sacrifice that. I do think, like, it's a weird one.
It's collateral damage.
It's collateral damage. It might be a phase. It's a season of life where, with running a business, at least from my perspective, like, you're gonna be, not in balance, and like, if you don't communicate that well with, like, your friends, your family, which I didn't, your relationships, it suffers greatly.
Yeah.
But it's also then once I was aware of it and I was communicating it, I also never acted on it, if that makes sense. So like somewhere along the line, I think probably when I started doing like therapy, probably in like 2023,
Yeah.
or 2022, I was communicating that like, oh, like, hey, like, I'm not really here right now because like I'm busy with work, like, you know, I'm doing this thing, I'm building this business up, like to build for our future, like just like hang in there with me. And you know, I said those things, but then I never, when I actually, the scary part is like once I actually had free time, like in the winter, like things were less, I had the habit of always working, that I couldn't break through out of that, even though the work didn't necessarily have to get done like it had to get done during my like 9-10 month season. This would be like an off season. Nothing really had to get done, but the habit of my own ego / stubbornness on like a Saturday afternoon, like I have to work, like I have, you know, it's like, versus like that's a time where it's like, hey, like we could just, you know, so I was like acutely aware. And then even going into this season, like, you know, we've had great conversations leading up to this. Like, you know, I was like, I know it's not that important. It matters, but it really doesn't matter. All this stuff I told myself. And now, you know, I'm on the other side of it. I'm like, you know, 7-8 months deep. And this week was better, but I think like last week and the week prior, like I was there. I was like, it was like, you know, I'm the habit of just like, you know, wake up and grind mode. Like that was what it was, 7 days a week. And like, it's almost reinforced, if that makes sense. Like my confirmation bias, or like stuff would happen, and like the fact that like I had my helmet on, I was ready for war, was just like almost rewarded, if that makes sense. So like you can't let your guard down. Like
I came out with my sword and shield. I have something to slay.
Yeah, and the dragons were there, and they were coming actually harder than ever for that like week and a half, 2 weeks. And it actually wasn't even dragons of just work related. It was,
Everything.
It was life dragons, like, you know, like other stuff. And it's just like, okay, perfect. Like, you know, we're ready for today.
Yeah.
Versus I don't like getting caught off guard, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But then that's no way to live, because you always have, like, I'm always like, you know, and it's like, it's weird. Like the last few nights or last week, like I'm waking up, or I'm like, I have to like wake up and like write stuff on post-it notes, or I feel like I have to like, you know, set reminders for myself, because like I'm just contemplating everything. Like it's just a weird, like usually for this time of year, after most everything's like done logistically, it's that old mentality. So even during the season when I had so much stuff to do, I trust myself that it would get done. But somewhere along the line, like that old, like, you know, behaviors or old like way of thinking, came through. It was like, oh, you gotta write this down. You gotta send this, like, you have like 5 things you might forget you have to do, like, you know. So it was weird. The old, I think in intense moments or intense stress or any life events, we default back on like certain behaviors. Does that make sense?
Of course.
And so when I was in that intense survival mode, that's all. Basically, it's described it like when everything's popping off in business, everything is just like I'm like survival mode, like kill, like I'm like working with my guys. One of my buddies, he came and helped me on the weekend. It was like a Sunday, and like we're doing covers, and he's looking at me, and I'm like grunting, screaming, and then like he's like, "You want to eat right now?" I'm like, "I can't eat right now. If I eat, I'm like, I have one mode, and it's just kill. Like I just get in there, and I'm like, if I eat right now, I'll probably like throw up, because I'm just like so just like in it." And I think it's good to be able to tap into that darkness, or that like that, not darkness, but that like, you know, just like, I don't want to do this. This sucks, but just do it anyway. But it's not good to live there, and especially for prolonged times. You know, maybe for like an hour or half hour, you need that energy, like, you know, it's like that protective energy. Like, you know, if someone like does something to your like wife or daughter, it's like, it's good to have that in you. I think to like be like, no, like that's, you know, like to have like, you know, that fight energy, but to be in that for a week is not good, if that makes sense.
Or 7 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think another thing too, going back to the idea of like the collateral damage, or like, you know, it may not be necessary for them to sacrifice relationships, or for people to sacrifice relationships for success. I think another practical thing to look at is a lot of the peoples in their lives, whether it be their wives, children, or friends, they weren't with them in the inception of their vision, right? So technically it was them, Jeff Bezos and his vision,
It's
It
like
was
him and
Bill
his
Gates
little,
and
like,
his vision.
bookstore, like,
And all those people now came into they were added onto his life after. So it very practically it makes sense that those people could be cut off because technically they weren't with him when
he was going through
when he first the idea was incepted in his head.
or if you, and I also think there's something to be said, sorry to cut you off, but like in the trenches, like, you know.
Even people in the trenches, that doesn't count because Melinda Gates, she was dating Bill Gates when he was still sleeping on the floor in Microsoft. So she was there from the beginning, but she wasn't there when he first had the vision of himself or who he knew he was. Because part of the reason he was sleeping on that floor was because he knew he was great. But the reason why I'm saying this again, and I'm sorry to double down, is like someone could be with you in the beginning of your business and you can still cut them off because they weren't with you when you first had the dream, when you first had the vision, when you first made that decision to believe in that. Because in order for that person to be with you, you had to convince them or present that idea to them. So meaning that idea had already been sold to yourself internally before that.
It wasn't like Melinda came said like, hey, you're great, you should start this thing. It was like, she's like, hey, I want to do this thing. This is what it's going to take. And she's like, okay, let's do it.
Because the purpose of that, like that analogy and what I was bringing up was why those people are able to be cut off so quickly. It just dawned on me. I was like, because they're not there. Like they're not they didn't give the vision. The vision was like they had constructed it and they were acting on it. So maybe even if they came in on the 1% mark, it's still not the same thing as them because they're not going to have the same passion about that vision than they are. Because Melinda may have bought into it for another reason because I want to be philanthropic, I want to touch the world and help the world. And she's like, all right, we're helping the world at a very high level now. We can stop now. And he's like, no, I'm just getting started.
But yeah. And like I have a friend who's another entrepreneur and like we talk about it. It's just like, you know, and also, you ever listen to Chris Williamson? He's like one of the podcasters. Do you know who Alex Hormozi is?
Like a pretty jack dude?
Yeah.
Blue
Like
background
mustache.
stuff?
Yeah, like so basically like they have really good conversations.
Uh-huh.
I would highly recommend anyone check them out. It's like Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozi. Basically they go through Alex, successful business owner, jack dude, usually mustache, long hair. He like tweets out stuff and then Chris Williamson and him like break it down in a podcast. But the biggest thing that for me, and I get just chills thinking about is like you've accomplished things that you said that would make you happy.
Mm.
You know, and that's one of the truest statements I think there's ever been. Is like you've accomplished things that you said would make you happy.
Yeah.
And you know, you're still most people, at least for myself, when I actually accomplished the things that I set out that I thought would make me happy, I was the least happy.
Right.
And that was a very weird feeling.
Yeah.
Like awful. Because like my whole world, I remember I literally had my goal sheet in my office, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like looking at it. I'm like, those are all checked. Like, you know, I had, this is probably like 18 months ago.
I don't feel any better. I feel worse.
I had like a physical goal. I had a financial goal.
Yeah.
I had like a relationship goal. Like I had all those goals. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, you know, I like the 6 goals I listed up. I accomplished I think like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm actually more unhappy than when I made these goals.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a weird thing. You know, it was just such a weird feeling that was like scary to me because then I questioned everything. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, because then it's like,
what is this all for?
yeah, it was like a total existential type moment.
Yeah.
And then like it forced me to reevaluate like my whole life. And then, you know, it was good though because I did, and you know, I found out some stuff about myself. But then the timing too was, you know, when I have more time for myself to contemplate these things.
Yeah.
You know, I could keep that more in mind. But then, like, when the wave of just like, you know, the habits of like a business or like the constant stress as it stands right now, where it's so reliant on me still, I just like those, you know, the reminder of like, remember, like you said, this really doesn't matter. Because like that's the thing, I'm lucky I have a season, because I can see most business owners that don't have a season, you never get to come up. You might be like this for 10
like
years.
you may be hard on the off season, but at least you can rest because there's no impending doom.
Yeah.
On the off season, for example, right? You may be working, but you don't have to put the helmet on to be on guard for a crazy call.
No.
So that alone.
It's a different.
But now imagine if you had to wear the helmet 12 months a year.
Like, say if I had a business in Florida, for example.
Yeah.
And then I can see it because some people might not even come up for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you know? They might never come up, and then, you know, they might be on their deathbed, or they might physically, like, you know, they have to, and they're like, what did they do the last 20 years? You know, because, like, I'm very lucky that, like, I could get out of that. Like, I didn't, because I used to, this is only going to be the second winter where I don't have another job, but I used to literally go from pools, and then I'd be sprinkling in personal training, and then literally I'd be working at 3 different gyms, personal training, and then go right back into pools.
Yeah.
Because I never gave myself, because that's that second. And I know it's actually, it's a generational thing, like it's like a Leffler, my dad's thing. It's literally, because I see workaholics. My dad, same thing, like he would go from, you know, pools, teaching, coaching, like, you know, limo driving in the winter, and then right back in the pools. Like he had no downtime. Yeah, he drove limos at night. Like he was starting out, needing more money. But they got blood clot in his leg because he was driving too much.
Bro, not sleeping.
At nights, yeah.
You didn't get any accidents though, right? That's crazy.
But like but I see my cousins, my dad's brothers, like that
whole just a workaholic.
Everybody. But the problem is, I see it as not a strength because they didn't punch through. They were workaholics, but they're not workaholics like, you know, Elon Musk, Jake.
Not effective, yeah.
They're not like millionaire workaholics because they're just staying. They're the hamster wheel, but they're not moving that needle forward.
Yeah.
They're working all the
time. But you're moving the needle forward, but you're still doing the same thing, which is wild.
Because I'm aware of it, you know. So I'm like, because that's the thing, like, I'm more conscious of the work I do on a daily basis. Because that's the thing, like, it's so easy. Like when running a business, there's always work to be done.
100%.
Always.
100%.
And so you could stay busy 10 months a year,
100%.
But you could look back at that year and like, okay, I was busy 10 months a year, but
I got nothing done.
You got nothing, like, it kept the thing running, but we didn't make any strides forward. And so that's also why I'm blessed with the off season, because that's when I could really make the strides forward, because I could spend the mental energy on initiatives moving it forward, like think about things more creatively. Because when I'm in the fog of war, my creative brain just turns off.
Yeah, completely. I noticed that.
Yeah, and I hate that. But like, it's like I have no capacity.
Yeah.
Because I see like even
you still haven't figured out the habits that you need to put in place in order to keep it on.
Yeah.
Because what you tried in the beginning of this season, it didn't work.
No.
So you have to try something else.
Yeah.
Next season.
Two things worked, but the initiative, like the manager on call system, didn't work.
Yeah.
It was flawed in the sense of they just didn't have either the tools or just the
trust in themselves.
Yeah, it was like the tools, like the knowledge, or even the capacity themselves, because they were doing other parts of the business to really fully handle those.
And they had their own personal things too.
Yeah, it's just too much. It sounded good, and like the theory is good, but it has to be more of like, I set that aside, like this is all you do, type of thing. It's creating under those expectations. Like I was assuming they could do what I do, in the sense of like, you know, answer those calls, respond to those calls, and
still continue their own personal vision.
Yeah. But the HR person, the accountant,
solid,
the bookkeeper, you know, of the 4 or 5 initiatives, 3 of them were rock solid.
Of course, which is great. That's life. That's trial and error.
Yeah.
You're never gonna get it all right on the first go.
No, but like I just see like, because then it just brought like my daily actual workload down tremendously.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, how do we now implement that success and figure out how to do it? But interesting enough, so it sounds like in 5 of those things being locked in, you now create an environment that's very similar to your off season. Whereas you don't have as much work stress, and
the last thing is the calls.
Able to be more creative.
Yeah.
Right.
If I had the calls taken care of, that creative capacity would come. That's the last like big missing piece is like a trusted operation manager that I could take those calls. Because someone could do that, I would like a winter mentality would free me up, because I would have maybe 3 to 4 hours of actual work that had to get done a day. And then the rest of the day could be focused on a new initiative, sales, like whatever have you.
Which is a whole different beast.
Because if I could do, what I do in 3 months for 12 months, that revenue, everything will be just like compounded just.
But the cool thing about sales is that because it's a new, different beast, and it's awesome, you're going to be interested in that. But it's going to get to a point where you get to the same crossroads. When you need someone else to take
Well,
it.
that's the thing, as I see, is like the goals of a business owner should be step one, obviously develop a good product, be profitable, generate sales. Step two, get the same type of thing where it runs itself, you can totally walk away from it.
Mhm.
Step three, have you totally walk away from it and have it generate new revenue.
Yeah.
So it's like step one, actually get a business, get it running, be like quote unquote successful, profitable, whatever, let it run itself, then have it make money on itself. That's like the evolution.
The evolution of the business.
But I'm still caught right before it running itself.
Of course, yeah, man.
And then we've been
That's
at
the
that
hardest
stage
part.
for the last probably 2 decades.
Yeah.
And like, cause it never dawned on my father to ever try to.
But you started thinking about that how long? 4 or 5 years ago?
I thought about it the last 4 years.
Yeah. So.
Probably more 3 years, 3 to 4. Like, I think I got exposed to more, conferences, more exposed to more people, and realized like this is not how you actually make real money.
Yeah. Or this is not how you live either.
No, this isn't like you live.
The business runs you.
The thing, it's like most people, like there's normal people looking in, like their idea of starting a business is they understand, there's a season, 5 to 10 years, you put in, you suffer, you build it up, but then you enjoy your life after. You sacrifice for 5 to 10 years to then enjoy the rest of your life.
But there's so much more.
But then versus like my dad sacrificed for 30 years, and now he can enjoy it because I'm now sacrificing the same he did. And he still can't fully enjoy as much as he wants to because he's still like tied to it. But
Things come up that you need them and stuff like that.
yeah, so like that's the thing. It's like he never had to like, hey, it's like been 5 years, like maybe you should try it. It's like, no, I'm gonna do this for 35 years, and then like my son will help.
But the interesting thing about it is, again, it all goes into habit, right? And it all goes into how bad you really want that. So if the same way someone really wants that success and is willing to sacrifice their family for everything, if someone really, 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 really wants to have a self-automized business who grows on itself, and they truly kill every evidence of pride in their life that would cause them not to do that.
The biggest thing is the pride of like me, the ego of like saying, hey, I could run this whole thing and do it all. It's my ego pride. That's what it really comes to.
Me and you, we're like, so you've been doing your business now for how long? Like,
Well, I guess fully into it. So I graduated college in 2018, but
me too.
I was
Accounting.
accounting, and I was doing this. Like that's the workaholic mentality. I was doing a full-time accounting job, and on my lunch break, and then in the evenings and the mornings, I was doing accounting. I was doing the pools.
Yeah.
Like I literally would have to. I remember I left like one lunch break, and like I had to go meet with the accountant, and I was like gone for like 3 hours, and like I just like snuck back in, like no one really saw. Like that was the stuff. Is like it was just nonstop.
Yeah.
It was nonstop. It's like that's what was comfortable for me. It's all I knew.
Yeah.
My physical health was really suffering though at that point, so I literally started the accounting job I think August of 2018, and like I was managing weekends, and then doing the payroll and all that stuff during the week and taking calls. Like it wasn't, but like for me that was normal. If that makes sense. That wasn't.
But it took a physical toll on your body.
Oh, it was awful. Like I also was leading up to my heart surgery, which that was probably leading up to it, but like. I was probably I looked not bad, but I was the worst, physically felt probably the worst leading up to that because all I was doing was just working.
Dang.
And like, I already was at the heart issue, but that was beyond the point. But the crazy thing is when I was in that, like, starting my accounting job and doing pools, it wasn't like, wow, I'm stupid or this is crazy for me doing it. It was like, this was just like, my dad does this, so this is normal.
Yeah, dude.
It was normal.
And not only that, like you're like, I'm building a